Welcome to Awakening Heaven on Earth. Before we begin, take a moment to arrive. There is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to believe, and nowhere you need to go. Simply listen, contemplate, and notice what stirs and resonates within you. This is a shared space of reflection, presence, and remembrance. Now, let us begin. Welcome to Awakening, Heaven on Earth. This episode is focused on the turning point, sacred text references. In this episode, we will practice a contemplative form of sacred listening. This practice is inspired by the ancient tradition known as Lectio Divina, a way of allowing sacred wisdom to move slowly from the mind into the heart. With each sacred text, we will move through 4 simple movements. First, Lectio, in which we hear the sacred words. Second, Meditatio. We reflect on their meaning. Third, Oratio. We respond inwardly. And fourth, Contemplatio. We rest in silence. As we begin, find a comfortable posture. Allow your shoulders to relax. Let your breath slow down. And gently close your eyes if you wish. Across the spiritual traditions of humanity, there is a moment spoken of again and again. A moment when the soul begins to awaken. A turning point. A moment when something within us remembers who we truly are. Let us listen now to the wisdom of the world. From Christianity. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, verse 20 says, "But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. In this story, a son wanders far from home. For a time, he forgets who he is. Yet the moment he awakens and turns back, the father is already watching the road. The embrace of love moves toward him before he can even explain himself. Where in your life might you be beginning to turn toward your true home? Now, let's enter a time of contemplation. From the mystical tradition of early Christianity. The Gospel of Thomas says, "The kingdom is inside of you and it is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, you will realize that you are children of the living Father." Awakening often begins with self-recognition. The discovery that the sacred presence we have sought outside ourselves has always lived within us. What part of your deeper self is ready to be remembered? From Hinduism. The Bhagavad Gita says, "Whenever righteousness declines and confusion rises, I manifest myself." And from the Upanishads, we receive the saying, Tattvam Asi, or Thou art that. These teachings remind us that the divine appears both in the world and within the heart. Awakening is the moment when we realize our true nature is already part of the divine whole. Now, contemplate this truth quietly. From Buddhism. The Dhammapada states, all conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. Awakening often begins with clear seeing. When we recognize the fleeting nature of all things, we begin to loosen our attachment. And with that release comes freedom. Now consider, what illusion might you be ready to release? From Islam. The Quran says, we are closer to him than his jugular vein. God does not change the condition of a people until they turn and change what is within themselves. These words remind us that the sacred is not distant. The turning point of awakening begins within the heart. Rest with this awareness. From mystical Judaism and the Hebrew Psalms. Psalm 139. If I ascend to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. The soul may wander through joy and sorrow, yet the presence of the divine remains constant. Consider where you might begin to recognize that presence. From Taoism. The Tao Te Ching says, returning to the root is stillness. Stillness is returning to one's true nature. The turning point is often a return. A return to the quiet center of our being. Rest in that knowing. From indigenous wisdom traditions. The saying, mitakuye o yasing, or all my relations. This phrase reminds us that awakening includes remembering our sacred connection with all life. Nothing exists alone. Everything belongs to the great web of being. Ponder this deeply. From the Sufi mystic Rumi. What you seek is seeking you. The longing within the human heart is not one-sided. The divine is also longing for reunion. Let this sink in. From Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius said, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if you will ever dig." The Stoics remind us that wisdom and clarity are already present within the human soul. The work is simply to uncover them. Contemplate this for a moment. Across these traditions, a shared message emerges. The soul may forget, but it cannot lose its origin. And when awakening begins, the path home becomes visible. Now, take one final deep breath and carry this wisdom gently into your day. As we come to a close, remember that this journey continues in many expressions. This podcast is part of a family of partner podcasts. Awakening Heaven on Earth. The space between heaven and earth, and Living Heaven on Earth are 3 companion podcasts exploring spiritual awakening from complementary perspectives. Awakening Heaven on Earth offers the core teachings and mystical reflections on unity, love, and conscious living. The space between creates room for dialogue, reflection, and lived conversation around those teachings. Living Heaven on Earth focuses on basic spiritual practices that help embody these insights in daily life. Together, they form a unified journey of understanding, experience, and integration, inviting listeners to remember their connection with the divine, with one another, and with the living world. You can find all of them available on the same podcast streaming platforms wherever you listen. And if music helps carry these teachings deeper into the heart, the Unity, Awakening Heaven on Earth album is available on all major music streaming services as a musical companion to this journey. Wherever you engage, through listening, reflection, conversation, or music. May it gently remind you you are not separate. You belong to the one life, and heaven is already unfolding within you. Until next time, walk gently, love deeply, and embody heaven on earth.